Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for episode 59 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on November 9th, 2016 on twitch.tv. Big shout out to the live chat here. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have the flowery voice of Justin Sane 0516. Justin, how have the drops been for you this week?
Few and far between, but to be fair, I haven't played as much as I'd like. But yeah, we got to do some raiding. And I did go up a few light levels, so
nice.
Better than usual.
Yeah, cool. We also have with us the infamous Wind of the Stars, Mel. How's the Iron?
It's not been too bad. It actually to 400, so that was good. But yeah, so all I needed was a shotgun, or not a shotgun, but a special and a heavy, and I actually got both of them last night in the very first couple rounds that I played. So I was happy with that. So, nice. But yeah, it's been pretty good.
Nice. All right, well, the topic of today's chat is going to be the Vanguard mentor to all those cuddly titans out there, and the Vanguard commander himself, Zavala. Before we get into that, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes. In our last chat, we took a look at the Warlock Vanguard mentor, Ikora Ray. If you missed that and have any interest in hearing our thoughts, please be sure to check out www.focusfirechat.com for archives of all previous chats, as well as links to all our various other pages. If you don't mind, please give us some feedback on iTunes to let us know how we're doing as well. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Wednesday at about 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. There is going to be a slight shift in our schedule starting this December. Due to some schedule conflicts and a desire to actually be functional at our day jobs, we're going to be moving the live stream of the podcast to Friday nights. We'll still start up around 10 p.m. Central, but hopefully this will give us some more flexibility for not just ourselves, but also for any guests that might be in different time zones as well. This means that instead of the audio hitting Podbean and other sources on Thursday morning, it's going to be available early Saturday morning Central. So please let us know if you have any thoughts or concerns on that change, either through Discord or an email to focusfirechat@gmail.com. In Discord, you can feel free to send myself or Justin or Mel a DM. Probably just send them to me, because I'll be able to concatenate. So please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts on the Guardian Radio Network, found at theguardiansofdestiny.com. These include Guardian Radio, the official podcast for the Guardians of Destiny, Guardian 1, and Ghost and Echoes, which also has the Destiny Audio Grimoire. Our next chat's going to be a discussion on the Master of the Crucible himself, Lord Shaxx. With that, let's go ahead and explore the lore that we have about Zavala. Mel, would you like to take the point?
Yeah, so our first one, Grimoire card, is Titan Vanguard Commander Zavala. And this is what the quote says at the top. It says, Basho knew, we struggled after. Undated battle notes. Zavala has never shied away from hard decisions. His life bends under the double weight of honor and duty. Each act of service more exhausting, more victory, more costly. Zavala continues anyway. He has never had time for anything softer than iron. So, yeah, just our basic introductory card for our wonderful Titan Vanguard, Zavala, and it just kind of states that he has one purpose in life, and he takes his job very seriously, and he's to me, it also just sounds like that stereotypical soldier that we all know that he is. Like he takes his command extremely serious and very, very military like. Blue?
Yeah, I was going to say here, this is the first indication, for those who haven't been standing around him in game and have caught this other part, but this is the first indication that he is actually very, very well read as from a historical point of view. The Basho that he mentions is most likely Matsuo Basho, who is actually one of the most famous poets of the Edo period in Japan, and he was very famous for his haikus and things of that nature. And Zavala also really does paraphrase Sun Tzu in idle dialogue and in some of the other quotes that we're going to get into. He quotes them on that. There is the multiple references to ancient Roman generals and dictators that he has throughout the game as well. The Fabian strategy, the Vitruvius mark is two of the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. So Zavala is very, very, very well aware of the historical context of Earth. The other thing that I did want to point out is his role in the Vanguard. We get introduced to him, and the first thing that most people notice is that he is not a Vanguard mentor, he is a Vanguard commander. Zavala is actually the leader of the Vanguard. He is the one that is the one-to-one communication bridge between the Vanguard and the speaker. He usually in most cases, it seems like he takes point when they're talking to the consensus. Other than that, really his big role is the overall defense of the city and just in general military strategy against enemy forces, both internal and external. And it's important there. That's something that's important, is it's not just external enemies. He actually is against internal enemies. So any device or any civil war rumblings, mutiny rumblings, the factions, we'll talk about his approach towards the factions a little bit later as well. So he's not just concerned with external threats. He's also very concerned about internal threats. The other point that I do want to make is we actually do know what armor he is wearing. It's the Jovian Guard armor. A lot of people have asked, what armor is that? That is actually a PlayStation exclusive armor. And the only thing that is noticeable there is that he does have that Vanguard mentor symbol that we were talking about with Ikora last week. He also is a bearer of that mark. So, Mel, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, it was also interesting. The actual name Zavala was a surname from Silesia that actually means it's derived from I'm going to butcher this really bad. I'm sorry, guys. Zawanda or Zawada.
Zawada.
So which means obstruction, fortress, obstacle, or impediment. So it just lends more to the the idea that he is the Titan. He is the protector Titan. He wants to protect everyone. He wants to make a strong fortress. And I think it was interesting that his name is derived from that, because you see that a lot through Destiny. A lot of names have meaning behind who they are. So I thought that would be interesting to add on.
Yeah, no, and it's Silesia, which is actually in Central Europe. It's mostly in Poland, and it is not a very It's a small area. Not a lot of people know a bunch about it, but especially during the World Wars, it was actually a pretty violent area because it was right on that budding point between Russia and Germany. Two powers that you don't want to be caught between when they're both going to war at each other, because they both did not hesitate to do some very not nice things to the people caught in between. I'm just like, I don't want to get too in detail. Go look at the history of Silesia. There was some very, very bad stuff that happened there. But yeah, that is the surname from where Zavala is derived from. No, go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
No,
I was
no.
going to say, I think it's interesting that it's from that specific region, because isn't that kind of where we're guessing where the European dead zone is right now
yeah,
too?
and that was
Yeah.
I was gonna say that too. It's actually a toponym, which is it's basically a name that's okay. So historically, what happens with surnames is usually it is in explaining what you do, like a profession. So common names like Smith. That was a name for a blacksmith, or Miller. That is a Miller, and that's kind of what that was. Toponyms are a bit of a variance on that, in that it's a surname for someone from a geographical area that's derived from a topological feature. Basically, this is a very mountainous area. And so there was obstacles and impediments to travel in this area, and that's where that surname was. So, someone who carries this surname, you would know would be from this geographical region. It's a different way of a naming convention. Basically, different cultures obviously have different processes of assigning names to things, but. So that's what it actually is. It's a toponym from someone from that area. And the interesting thing here is, while it is from a Central Europe, a region, the surname was first seen in the Central region or Central Europe. It's actually more well known for Mexican or South American, especially in the Mexico area. That's where a lot of people actually recognize it from. There's a couple really big names, and I don't have them at hand, but when I was looking through, a lot of them were from South America, and so it was an interesting juxtaposition for me on that research note. But yes, you want to?
Very cool.
Do we want to move on to?
Let's grab
Vanguard, of which he is the commander.
Yes.
So this is a card of an outdated currency. We used to have Vanguard marks, Crucible marks, all these different currencies. They kind of consolidated all this into legendary marks. But this is the card for Vanguard marks. When a terrible threat rises, Guardians look to the Vanguard, the closest thing they have to command structure. These elite veterans coordinate the reports of roaming hunters, the analyses of cloistered warlocks, and the instincts of grizzled titans into a single plan of action. And when Guardians fight as part of that plan, the Vanguard rewards them. Vanguard marks are tokens of favor that earn a trusted Guardian access to the tower's armories. Listen carefully to the rumblings of Lord Shax, and you might come to believe that this system was meant to keep vital warfighting supplies from being wasted in the Crucible. Talk to Commander Zavala, and he will reassure you that the Vanguard Mark system exists for one reason: to get the best equipment into the hands of those who get the best results. Guardians eager to win Vanguard Marks would do well to participate in strike missions organized by the Vanguard. Just an incentive to make you do strikes.
Yeah. And here, the main reason that I thought this was really relevant is because of that line there. Zavala is saying that it's fair. The best weapons will go to the people who get the results. If you don't get the results, you won't get the marks and you won't get the weapons. So it's basically a way to assign a fair assignment of resources to those who deserve it.
Yeah.
But, which I guess will actually kind of lead into the next card that I wanted to read, was the Strikes introduction. And it starts with a quote from Zavala. It says, "There are threats that must be faced with unfettered aggression. Are you ready?" And that's from Commander Zavala. "Our enemies hide among our lost worlds, plotting to ensure our extinction. But the Vanguard keeps a vigilant watch on places where the creatures of the darkness grow strongest, and seeks guardians bold enough to join forces to face them. So the point here is that a lot of people like making jokes about Zavala, about hiding behind walls and being cautious and not being a man of action. And I actually completely and absolutely disagree with that notion of his personality. Zavala is not someone who hides from a fight. Zavala is someone who waits until the moment is right in which he can cut your throat in one shot. He's basically the person who waits for the perfect moment to attack because, again, stemming from the art of war, he doesn't want to waste his efforts. He doesn't want to waste his energy. He doesn't have the resources to waste in a war of attrition, which is kind of humorous given that the weapon of Titans is the Fabian strategy. But his entire thing is he doesn't want a drawn-out battle. He wants to end it as quickly as possible. And that being the case, that's where the unfettered aggression comes from. So I'm going to be making that argument a little bit throughout the pretty much the entire of this podcast. There's a lot of quotes from Zavala that point to that being the case. So I'm gonna, Mel, you want to grab zone control?
Yeah, totally. So zone control, and the quote on it is, "Only one path to victory, Guardians," from Lord Shax. 6v6 team engagements. Seize pre-selected vantage points and dig in to defend them against the opposing team. Zones under team control score points over time. Sometimes holding your ground is all that matters. A rare concession to Commander Zavala, Shax offers up this variant of control as an exercise in battlefield terrain acquisition and defense. Lay claim to the territory, go shoulder to shoulder with your allies, and keep it yours. Either Titan would tell you your best defense is a flawless defense, but take note. Cade 6 might just point out that sometimes that works the other way around. So what you were just talking about, how he's very precise and he waits for the right moment to, as you say, slit your throat. This very much, I think, also adds more to that claim that he's saying, like, hey, we're going to sit here, we're going to wait, have the best defense is sometimes the best offense, and it's kind of exactly what he said. But yeah, he's definitely lays and waits. Definitely not a striker Titan, I would imagine, in my mind.
Right. And I mean, we have there's some interesting quotes from Saint 14 actually for the Defender Titans that are not very defensive. Like there's parts of, there is a point of a Defender Titan that is not just simply, hey, I'm going to make a wall and stand behind it. It's they are the wall. And that sometimes means that they have to go on the offensive, but most of the time they need to be on the defensive because their entire job is to protect their teammates. And that's another thing that for Zavala is a very, very big point. You're a team. You're not an individual that's running around, willy-nilly. You are part of a team and you need to play that part. And if you play that part correctly, the entire team succeeds magnificently. If you don't, sure, you might survive, but it's not going to be as great. So Mel, I know you have something.
Yeah, just on the note, talking about Defender Titans in general, I mean, when a Defender Titan in game, when you deploy that special, it's kind of almost like a mousetrap. Like you lay in wait for someone to be stupid enough to come in and try to oppose you while you're in your bubble. Like that's just bad news bears, So, I mean, it's very rare that you can go in there and then you can open up another special, either being lightning or maybe blades if you're risky enough. But I mean, and even in just PvE content, anytime you pop that bubble and something comes in, and generally when that bubble is out, you're working as a team. It's a vital strategy to defeating whatever enemy that you're trying to defeat against. So, and then the little perks that you get off it, either blessings of light or weapons of light, you become stronger and you work together as a team. Justin?
Yeah. I was just gonna say though, the Defender Titan can be used offensively with just what you just mentioned, the weapons of light.
Mm-hmm.
You can use that bubble as an offensive tool, and I mean, it's not like that's a tactic you would use to just pop a bubble, sit and wait. That's when you're being very proactive in that you're dropping a weapons bubble, you're dipping in and out of it, and you're doing damage. You're doing all these things, and that's a very common strategy in the raid. But I love this card because Lord Shax starts it out saying only one path to victory, Guardians, and then they end up the card saying, "Yeah, Shax and Zavala say you can do it this way, but Cade says it's the other way around." So there's actually more than one path to victory. But yeah, so I mean, I do see Zavala as a defender, but I don't think that necessarily makes him a camper, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
No. Just a strategist. I see him definitely more as a strategist.
Yes.
I don't think he puts his pants on. It's not planned out.
Is he one of those guys that like lays out all his little armor bits and like all his outfit for the next day?
I can see him being a very meticulous individual.
Almost OCD, I think sometimes in my headcanon. I don't have anything to back that up, but
I can maybe see that.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into that.
Having said that, let's move on to one of our, I think, the first story mission.
Yep.
Is it a restoration?
Mm-hmm.
This is a quote from Zavala. "Taking down an Archon is no easy task. With the Master of the Fallen Servitors gone, the House of Devils will scramble to protect the Prime Servitor. And securing an NLS drive will let you join the fight beyond Earth. Mind the speaker's wise words. I believe he speaks for the Traveler, Commander Zavala." I felt it's very weird he had to say that last little bit.
I think he's emphasizing it.
I felt that was pretty widely accepted.
Well, I think it's more of his belief. Well, there's a quote. There's a quote. I'm trying to remember which one. It's one of the Talk to Zavala quotes, and I'm trying to find it. But I don't have it right now. But there's actually a comment in which your ghost basically talks about how Zavala has become, in the time that we are running around in the tower, he has become more passionate about what and how he actually believes what he preaches. And so I think that's kind of the point here, is that he's starting to kind of reiterate his belief in what the city stands for. And we'll definitely get into this bit later as well. But Ikora had the light in the darkness thing that she kept bringing up over and over and over. Zavala has one of those as well, and it's called the dream of the city. And it's an interesting little thing that he has that I'm looking forward to talking to that one. But real quick, I just wanted to bring in the Ghost Fragment, the City Age. This is when I was talking earlier, the defense against internal threats, right? This is actually kind of a case of that being shown. This is a transcript of a meeting among the consensus, and most people will probably remember that the consensus is formed of the three major factions, the Vanguard and the Speaker. So there's 5 aspects of it. The 3 major factions that we are aware of are Dead Orbit, New Monarchy, and Future War Cult. Now, the thing is that Future War Cult was not always part of the consensus. This was not actually in place until somewhat recently. We're not really sure how recently, prior to our Guardian obviously being there. But there used to be a faction known as the Concordat that was actually part of the consensus. This is the end of the Concordat's placement in the consensus, and actually the point at which the future war cult is brought forward. So again, this is a transcript from that meeting, and it starts with, "And so it is agreed, the Concordat shall no longer be recognized among the consensus. We'll begin the dismantling right away. But what of those guardians who have pledged for them? We can't afford any more banishments." There's a response of, "I'm sure Zavala can see their realignment. We'll do our best. Lysander chose his followers wisely. It may take some time. Lysander will not back down. He'll continue his crusade from wherever we stuff him. And so we'll need to find some new ideas to replace his. The Symmetry has been gaining a strong following. Ulan Tan's teachings are too dangerous, too much fear. Who knew he'd be more trouble dead than alive? We'll need to refocus our collective minds on combat. The speaker's anxious to regain ground we lost after the gap. There is the war cult. Too secretive. Have you ever tried to talk to one of their soldiers? Like a child, answering questions with questions. They are dedicated to the war. Which one? Good question. Zavala? They seem focused, strong, more interesting than worrisome. Let's take it to a vote. All in favor of the ascension of the future war cult? Unanimous. Good. We'll grant the future war cult access to the tower and a seat among us. Ghost, please offer the speaker this proposal. Now, on to the next order of business. Shax is here with another proposal for his crucible. So, obviously, Shax has a number of proposals for his crucible. But the point here is Zavala actually supports the future war cult, not because he aligns with their faction, but actually because they are dedicated to war and dedicated to battle. So, yes.
They're basically there just to fill the gap that the Concordat left.
Well, they're there, and if you know the history of the Concordat, the future war cult's a little bit more level-headed than the Concordat.
Yeah, exactly.
Lysander had
single-minded.
Lysander had a very big bone to pick with Osiris and some of the speakers, I think, teachings and stuff like that. He was, I mean. Okay, on Bannerfall, which is where the Concordat and the New Monarchy last battle really went down, you actually see the Concordat sigil or symbol, and it's a fist pushing down. If that gives you an indication of, what they believed in, it's a fist pushing down. Uprising is a fist pushing up. You usually don't see a fist down because that's kind of a sign of a dictatorship. So, kind of gives you an idea of what they replaced.
Also, the last line, Shax is here with another proposal. I get to see Shax coming in like those guys that always are trying to pitch these really sad campaigns, and everyone just is like, "Is this guy done yet?" He comes in with his little diagrams, like, "Okay, hear me out.
I found out that the Warlocks have a new form of soccer, and it's really explosive.
It's called Rift."
And does anyone else notice that the speaker attends these meetings via proxy ghost?
Yeah,
surprised.
I'm not surprised at all. I get the feeling that the speaker is really kind of the first among them.
And do you even think that's... I can't even really imagine that Zavala, Ikora, and Cade really want the speaker there to know literally absolutely every detail, because I can see that there's probably some things going on. They're like, we're not going to let the speaker know about this. That's probably not a good idea. So I can imagine it probably was something that was agreed upon early on. They're like, no. You stay in your tower, we'll stay in ours, and then we'll send you an email via ghost.
But you always picture the speaker as part of the consensus, correct?
Yeah.
Or
the mouthpiece of the consensus. I always picture him as the mouthpiece.
But no, he's not the mouthpiece. He never says anything.
He the speaker.
But he
can't be this mouthpiece. No.
Then why call him the speaker?
It's mostly an honorary title, Mel. It's mostly an honorary title. He never
All
actually
right.
performs that duty.
So Zavala.
Moving
Yeah.
on.
Moving on.
So, yeah, the Iron Banner. And so the quote on the Iron Banner Grimmer card is as following: "Only the strong are welcome here." And that's from Lord Saladin Forge, hero of the Twilight Gap. The Lords of Iron, ancient warriors of the city's founding, have no time for mollycoddling. The city remembers Felwinter, Jolder, Scory, and Teemer, Radagast and Galeon, and the others for their invincible patrols during 6 fronts in the wall building. The Iron Banner asks Guardians to live up to that legend. Lord Saladin, once Shaq's mentor, runs the Iron Banner tournaments to strip Crucible weaklings of their illusions and prepare them for a battle with no concept of fair play. The Iron Banner tests a Guardian, and the Guardian's gear is in a definitive, relentless mock war. By order of the city consensus and the speaker, Saladin and Shax cooperate in admiration, and the Iron Banner is technically a component of the Crucible. In practice, Saladin keeps his own schedule, his own reward, and his own territory in the tower. Now and then, someone tries to get Zavala, Shax, and Saladin to sit down for dinner and sort out their differences, but they remain as awkward, as stubborn as State 14's Skull. So definitely we get a lot of the information about what the Iron Banner stands for, but the most important thing here is that there's still some tension between Zavala, Shax, and Saladin. Like they, you know, like if you sit them down in a room, they're probably just going to cross their arms and stare at each other and not say anything.
Yeah, especially Shax and Saladin. I think Zavala is the awkward part of that conversation because
like,
Zavala,
hey guys,
yeah, Zavala is the kind of like. He's the guy that's caught in the middle of like the two, you know, there's the 3 best friends and 2 of them are like super pissed off at each other and they're not talking to each other. And then it's Zavala's the one that's like, guys, seriously, you guys are idiots. Yeah. Like just.
Can you just imagine Zavala's voice? All right, guys, we need to make up now. Oh man. And Shax and Saladin are just like, no.
Yeah.
You don't want him.
Yeah. He's stupid.
Shax throws salad at salad. I'm not going to take this slander anymore. Gets off and storms to Felwinter.
Yeah, he didn't like it when we wore a mask around him, so I can't imagine that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
he got really butthurt about it.
Yeah, he did not like it. That is not funny. It was freaking hilarious, dude. But
Cade was wearing one.
Oh yeah.
Kate was wearing one of Eris. I love it. Yes. Oh, yes. My Vanguard mentor is the best Vanguard mentor. I mean, wait, what?
Thank you. High five. If anyone argues that, they're just not very objective.
Yeah.
Well,
pins in chat. Zavala suggesting a trust fall between Saladin and Shax.
You know, whoever's supposed to catch would just step back and go, "Oh, sorry, bro."
Yeah, if the person falling doesn't do a fist of panic.
That's how Shax lost the horn on his helmet. They did a trust fall exercise, and it broke. And that's literally why they don't talk anymore. He's like, "Dude, you broke my helmet. Dude, you threw salad at me." And now that's why they don't talk. Like, to forget this other stuff.
That makes perfect sense. Did
sense. This happen at a Golden Corral?
Yes.
What happened?
Yes.
What? Okay, good. Oh, we don't have those here either. I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh! All right, moving on. Let's talk about Saladin. Let's talk about Saladin and Zavala.
Our Iron Banner rep, Danny Glover. No, Lord Saladin, a hero to the city and a legend in his own right. Saladin Forge led the city's defense during the battle for Twilight Gap. His proteges, Commander Zavala and Lord Shax, now lead the tower's Vanguard and the Crucible, respectively. Saladin remains close to Zavala, though his relationship with Shax has been strained since the Twilight Gap. The Iron Banner seeks great champions to lead the fight against the darkness. It was born to honor the Iron Lords and their efforts in the earliest days of the city. So, you can say that Saladin was the mentor of Zavala and Shax.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow now there's a rift between Shax and Saladin.
Yeah, and it seems to stem. I mean, well, it stems from something that happened in Twilight Gap. A lot of people kind of hold that Shax disobeyed orders and ran forward in a counterattack. I have a couple of theories about why that kind of did not go over well with Saladin. We'll definitely get into that. We'll definitely get into that next week when we talk about Shax. But the important thing here for this week is that Saladin and Zavala are still kind of buddies. Like they're still friends. So that was just to reiterate that point about Zavala's just the awkward one. He's not the stubborn one. That's not in this situation, at least.
Yeah, I don't even like stubborn for him. I don't like calling him stubborn. I like to call him decided.
Yeah, deliberate. He's yeah. So that kind of wraps Zavala up with Shax and Saladin. So now I want to kind of open, and I kind of want to move to Zavala and one of our favorite peoples, Cade. A lot of people recognize that Zavala is usually about at his wit's end when he has to deal with Cade. It's everyone kind of is at their wit's end when they have to deal with Cade, because that's just what Cade does. But I think that there is a very, very big reason why Zavala can't stand that, and it again stems from kind of the deliberate, very careful, methodical process in which Zavala goes through everything, and Cade does not. And that brings us to the Dread Patrol card, in which it's a transcript excerpt of a 2-hour-long meeting between Zavala and Cade. So yes, Cade was probably running the Zavala.exe file the entire time, but the quote is, "Just have a hard time believing you take anything seriously. Placing patrol beacons was supposed to be a careful, meticulous process. I expected it to take the better part of a week. I don't mind you delegating the task, but you should have collaborated to make sure they were triangulated perfectly. Do you have any idea how long it took to deploy the beacon network in the Cosmodrome?" That's the end of the quote. So
Cade and his crooked patrol beacons.
Okay,
good.
As the Guardian who kind of put those in place, we kind of just threw them in the ground. Like there was no triangulation.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
He's like, that looks good. Just throw it there, Guardian. You're like, all right.
But you can't argue results because they're spaced about like the ones on the Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Like there's not much difference.
But they're not going at a straight perpendicular angle from the ground, Justin. Like, hello. It's very important. Important to Zavala.
And so then that brings us to...
It's not a sundial.
Maybe it is.
Maybe
Maybe that's how they work. Maybe they're solar powered. I don't know. Anyways,
so that brings us to the next one that I have is the Dreadnought. Mel, I'm gonna take, but this is
sure.
Just go for it.
So this is a quote from Zavala. I'm in transmission to Travelers Observatory, and it is as follows. And so that's the situation. With Cade's help, the Guardian has established a beachhead on the Dreadnought. I'm caught in the impossible position of wanting to reward and punish them both. If you have any guidance in this matter, it would be appreciated. I'll file another report this evening. For now, I need to go have another conversation with Eris Moore before she rends Cade limb from limb. So it's pretty clear that he is livid with Cade and obviously our Guardian, because we're just like, whatever. And he's upset, and Eris is clearly upset because we took her ship. So Cade is just like ruffling everyone's feathers, and Zavala was probably sitting there like face palming and shaking his head, like I don't know what to do.
But at the same time, like at the same time that he's like, exactly, you can tell that he's just like this annoyed, like he's just like, I want to slap you. But at the same time, he's still keeping the peace. Like, he's still playing the peacekeeper between Eris and Cade.
But that's not completely just because he wants to be a peacekeeper. He sees the value in what Cade did.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't appreciate the manner in which he went about getting it done. As far as Eris being mad about her ship, the hive turd that it was, she could just get over it. She could find another one. Just go down to the circle of bones.
I feel like Eris is getting the short end of the stick here. I mean, like we are pretty much calling her crazy all this time. We take her ship, we pretty much get it blown up, and then I can see why she's a little irritated and why she
never flew it.
No, yeah, Justin just doesn't like the hivey hiveness.
Yeah, the hivey hiveness all over the front of that thing. It's just barnacles, wall to wall barnacles.
It almost feels like Zavala has a really hard time saying these words. He's like, "Gosh dang it, I don't want to admit it, but yeah, Cade and the stupid Guardian did something good, but they did it all wrong. I'm gonna have to go redo it because it's not the way it needs to be done." Kind of like when you load the dishwasher incorrectly and the other person's like, you loaded it wrong, and they go and unload it and then reload it. Okay.
I totally do that every single time someone tries to do that to my dishwasher.
Who does that?
Are you Zavala?
You can load the dishwasher wrong.
Oh, wait, we determined that last chat that Blue is Zavala, Justin is Cade, and somehow I'm Cora. So there you go.
I think that was just a default thing. I think both you and I are both Cade. I don't know who. Is.
Oh, I know. I think we each have our Cade moments more often than not. So poor Blue.
Okay, so
you get double Cades, Blue.
So I'm not real sure about the makeup of Awoken anatomy, but I think it's still called an aneurysm. An Awoken one. And that's what Zavala's having like 90% of the time. So we want to move on, talk about my favorite sword. Actually, the only exotic sword I ever bothered to get, which is the Raise Lighter.
Go for it.
Next order of business. The growing city foundries. Bang! What madness is this? Lord Shax, the consensus did not. We barely eked out a victory at Burning Lake. And now you think we're ready to attack the moon? We're preparing. Did you not read my report from Burning Lake about the Hive's weapons? Those swords, they're like nothing we've ever. Lord Shax, Zavala, you can't think this is wise. We need to examine these swords, train against them. That is a matter for the consensus to decide, old friend. Ever the stickler for procedure.
Well, I think it's not just the fact that it's procedure. It's also just the way that this city, in order for the city to survive, the consensus has to lead. If you challenge the authority of the consensus, you risk creating a rift that might not go, it might not end. You think, oh, this is not the best way forward, and so we are going to ignore the will of the consensus on this one matter. And it's a slippery slope. And I think that's kind of the logic that he had. That's kind of the logic I read. That's kind of the logic I read here. I think that Zavala, little She-Bear in chat says this as well. I think Zavala does agree with him. I think Zavala agrees with Shax, but in order to support in order to do his job, he is the commander of the Vanguard. He is beholden to the consensus's will. There's a degree of which he's kind of got his hands tied, and that's the politics of the position that he holds. So I think that's kind of the importance of this card, is that he bows to the will of the consensus, even when it definitely feels that he might not necessarily agree with the will of the consensus. So, do we want to roll over to his response to Rasputin?
Yeah.
So this is the card, The Last Array. And this is, again, is a quote from Zavala. And he says, "The terrestrial array was Dead Orbit's hope to reconnect to the lost colonies of our inner system. You succeeded where they failed. Though Rasputin seized control of the array, that only strengthens our resolve to break the old war mind's firewalls and enlist its help in the wars to come. We must reach Rasputin and make our case." So this is obviously the card that you get for The Last Array, the mission, the story mission in vanilla. But this is actually the response that Zavala has to the concept of Rasputin, especially now that he knows that Rasputin is awake. He basically is like, okay, now we definitely have to go get his help. And it goes a little bit further. We actually find out in this next card, just what his view of Rasputin is. And Mel, you want to grab?
Yes.
Yeah, Mel, you want to grab that one?
Yes. This is the Fallen Saber card, and it is as follows. We've picked up a high-grain transmission. Origin point is somewhere along the coast, near the Cosmodrome. Get in there, assess the threat, and aid Rasputin. A threat to the war mine is a threat to the city as well. Commander Zavala. So just goes over again that his feelings on Rasputin, and he knows that Rasputin is someone that isn't going to be a valuable. He'd rather have him on his side than not have him on his side. And so they know that if there's any threat to the war mind, then they're screwed as well. Mm-hmm. So I also like this strike when you defeat the Fallen Saber and the ghost is carrying on.
Strike?
Oh yeah,
not to play.
The ghost is like
the ghost lines, yeah, because he's like, "Oh, I get to live in your backpack," and he's making a comment of that to Zavala, and Zavala just goes,
"Yeah."
He's like, "I don't care, shut up." So
there's a quote where he's
totally
like, we totally just killed the world or the universe's biggest shank. Amanda will be impressed. It's like
totally neglected to tell us there was a turbo shank down there. Way to go, Zavala.
That's why he sent us in, so that way, if there's any threat, we'll take care of it.
It's
keep our assets alive, keep them dead. So
you didn't keep my assets alive. My assets died a lot.
Oh my god.
Fabian strategy.
First of all, there's nowhere safe in that room. Nowhere.
Here we go.
Nowhere.
Well, and not until the very end when there's the snipers out. But the first two sections.
Not until the end where there's a dead shank in the middle of the floor. That's the part where there's a dead. Yeah, that's when.
But the other two ones you have cover to fight.
The floor catches on fire, Mel.
Well, you don't stand where the floor is on fire and opens up. You go stand on the sides behind the cover, silly goose.
Oh, you get away from the fire like your eggs. I see.
Oh my god.
Justin Strats.
So, Justin
continuing
Strats
on
for the win. So moving on from Frank the Turbo Shank to the Devil's Lair, another strike. Fallen will continue to claw at the walls of our city unless we strike them down. Beneath the ruins of the Cosmodrome, in the shadow of an old colony ship, we've located the House of Devil's Lair and the High Servitor feeding them with their strength. We must destroy this machine god and send their souls screaming back to hell. Commanders of all. Little did he know we'd have to do this like multiple times. Like how many times now have we killed this sucker? I don't know. It's been a few. 3? Maybe?
We're not counting anymore. That's
2 or 3.
Just kill it. That's all he wants. Just kill it. Just get rid of it.
Okay.
The main point of this quote is the fact, again, Zavala is not a passive person. I mean, he's not. I mean, this is just another quote to point out that Zavala has kind of a pretty strong feeling towards the Fallen, especially. And that's also backed up in the Scourge of Winter card, where he says, I will admit to a very personal satisfaction at the death of Draxus. He hurt my city, and he hurt my friends. Few guardians have ever assaulted a Kell in the throne room of his own ketch. The entire tower is abuzz at the chance to explore this downed winter ship. But more important, we've removed another fallen nightmare from our worlds. We thank you, Guardian. So, he is not someone who just sits and doesn't do anything. He just wants to do things that are well planned out. So, and to another point of his view of taking action is the Cerberus Vey 3 card. Mel, you want to grab that one real quick?
Yeah, of course. Cerberus Vey 3, quote, whether we wanted it or not, we've stepped into a war with the Cabal on Mars. So let's get to talking out their command, one by one. Valis Tark, from what I can gather, he commands the siege dancers from Imperial land tank outside of the Rubicon. He's well protected, but with the right team, we can punch through those defenses, take this beast out, and break their grip on the Freehold. Commander Zavala. He's always very to the point. He's like, this is a threat. This is what I want you to do. Go get it done. Like almost every one that we've been going through. It's not colorful.
No,
it's
not.
It's not. He's just like, he's so cut and dry, man. He's just like, do the thing, report back to me. You know, like it's weird that so far we haven't really gone too much into about him. Like it's just Zavala. Blue?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I was going to say the other interesting thing that kind of strikes me on this particular card is the Rubicon, which, you know, the Cabal are very, very seemingly heavily based off the Romans. The Rubicon was the river of severe importance, especially for the Caesar timeline. Crossing the Rubicon was a huge event in Roman history. So I always found that an interesting little nod there. But yeah, this is basically Zavala saying, here's an assassination order. Like this is like, I don't even care. Killed this one person. Like that's all I care about. Assassinate him. So he's not above sending in a strike team to do wet work.
And that must have been like very important for him, because generally that's kind of delegated to like Kay to go take out certain people.
Yeah.
But this one, he's just like, no. It's coming straight from me.
Yeah.
You need to take this guy out. Do it now. You know?
Yeah, no, and that's again, like he oversees the military, you know, aspects of the city. But he's usually the defense, like he's usually defense against enemies. So it's very rare for him to act. Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. It's very rare for him to be like, hey, that guy right there, F him.
Kill him.
Make him a splat on the ground.
I actually picked up something cool, but it's not Zavala centric, so I'll be real quick on it. But this strike is called Cerberus Vey. And Cerberus was in Greek mythology was the 3-headed dog, the Hound of Hades.
Mm-hmm.
And
Fluffy.
then the word Vey, actually you have to go back to some pretty old languages, but it actually is a cognate with the English word woe. And when you think about it, Cerberus Vey, the woe of Cerberus, Rocket's Mick Richard face. He had he had three generals that we sklounced on the way to killing him, right? So I think that's the Cerberus was his three generals, the
sorry.
two on foot and the one in the tank.
I have to give you so much kudos for that was amazing.
You all know who I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh yeah. No, I know exactly. Oh my gosh,
But yeah, I think that's a cool tidbit though. Just about that strike, it has nothing to do with Zavala. It's the woe of Cerberus.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, moving on.
Why don't we grab Black Shield?
How about the Black Shield? Yeah. Let's do it. So this first part really confuses me because it's obviously not a Zavala quote, but it opens up the card for Black Shield. The Cabal are too structured, too disciplined. Let's show them what fun looks like. Yeah, Cade said that.
I'm not
Just gonna
surprised.
go ahead and lay that out there. Area designation Black Shield. Location Firebase Thuria, Phobos. Codename Black Shield. This decommissioned firebase is believed to have been a key position used by the Cabal as they established their warbase on the surface of Mars. With the majority of their forces stationed planetside, Guardians have been able to claim Black Shield as a competitive training ground. Both Shax and Commander Zavala have questioned the Cabal's strategy, believing that forfeiting such a strategic position may one day leave the Cabal and Mars open to a proper defensive. Yeah, so
yes, and the emphasis here
is that a hint? Is that a hint at a Mars raid?
The emphasis here was that Zavala and Shax both have the idea that this could be a potential weakness that they could exploit against the Cabal. So, again, he's looking at using a strong offense to build a stronger defense.
Also, that map sucks. Just saying.
Okay.
She's okay with that.
She's okay. So that brings us to Fleet Base Koros on Phobos, and it's a quote from Holborn. It says, "Thuria might be clear, but it's not the problem Koros could become." So this is, and it says, discovered by Holborn's host in association with Lord Shax and a Red Jack fire team, Fleet Base Koros marks the largest known Cabal orbital defense station in system. Reports have the fleet base under the command of the Triumvirate, headed by one Primus Ta'an, and his fleet battalion commanders Valus Tulorn and Valus Maul. The Skyburner fleet has yet to be deployed against the city, bringing Zavala the fear that the Cabal have yet to launch their core campaign. So, the point there is, again, Zavala's view of strategy and actually his fear of the Cabal. He actually fears that we have not yet seen the full weight of the Cabal Empire. There is a outbound signal, which is another card. I didn't have it because it doesn't really pertain to really anything except to back up that fear. It's a report from Dead Orbit to Zavala, and it basically is like, yeah, they sent a transmission, but we really don't have any clue where it went. So, but that is his views of the Cabal. You want to run to, or you want to move over to his views of the Vex?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the Cabal real quick. I wonder if he fears the Cabal because he knows how highly organized and regimented they are, and he doesn't see that in him. Maybe the people that he leads, and maybe he sees the fact that he's not as regimented and focused, and everyone falls into place as much as he wants to. I wonder if he sees that as a weakness in his forces, and since there's the Cabal are, and obviously being very organized and everyone falling in line, everything like that, is something that he admires. So just something I was thinking of, but yeah. So the next one is a little long. It's called Soul Progeny, and it's to Commander Zavala and my thoughts on recent events. And it's from Ikora. It's a little long, and since we have a lot to cover, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it real quick. And it's just kind of pointing out that that there's the bad news, and it's the end of the time of the victory. So, and it has to deal obviously with the Vex and everything like that. So, do we want to elaborate any more on this besides that? Blue, did you want to elaborate any more on this one?
Yeah, I don't want to point out, I wanted to point it out, not to point to a form of pessimism, but more of a form of a hyper-realism on Zavala's part. The exact line is, she basically, Ikora opens up the report with, how like you to ask me for the bad news, even in this moment of triumph.
She's done that many a time, too.
And that's what I was going to say. I was like, this is obviously something that that has happened a number of times before. And this is at the end of the vanilla storyline. So we have defeated the Black Heart, and this is, everyone is celebrating except for Zavala. Zavala is immediately looking on the horizon saying, what's the next threat? Is this thing going to come back? Is this still a threat? Did we cut off the head of the snake, or did we just cut off the head of a Hydra? He's immediately just rolling into the next fight, and he's trying to make sure that we are prepared for that fight. And again, there's a couple quotes from the Art of War that I'm gonna start talking about when we get into the our thoughts on all these cards. When we start recapping the chat, but that I want you guys to keep that in mind from this card. This kind of points out that Zavala's core core philosophy with regards to the state of the city. He views himself, I think I kind of get the sense that he views himself as not having the luxury of taking a break. He's carrying a weight on his shoulders that is very, very heavy, regardless of if it actually is there or not. I think that's the sense that I get from Zavala, and a lot of his quotes kind of point to that too, for me at least. So, but yeah, I'll let you.
I think it also points out that this is the reason why he is the commander, why he is leading everyone.
Yes.
You can't imagine Ikora or Cade or even the speaker or anything like that, be sitting there and going, okay, what's our next move? Like, we defeated this. Who else do we need to make sure is not a threat? Like, you can't imagine any of the rest of them doing that. So,
no.
But do we want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Crota's Bane? Okay.
Yeah, we can do the Crota's Bane card. So this one kind of just points out the sort of the point of view of Eris. Eris Morn is the sole survivor of an ill-fated raid on the Hive's lunar fortress. It was Eris and a ragtag fire team who, after the first charge to take back the moon, sacrificed everything in return of a search of the one the Hive called Crota. Robbed of her ghost, Eris remained lost among the darkest shadows of the Hellmouth for countless cycles. Despite all odds she endured, using the very dark she battled to emerge a changed warrior, driven, some would say obsessed. The Speaker and Commander Zavala find her compulsions a sickness, convinced she has been fully seduced by the shadows. Though her warnings of Crota and his power are often dismissed as madness, Eris returns to the shadows time and time again, operating as one of a Core Rays Hidden, a clandestine group of guardians, tasked with silently infiltrating enemy strongholds and gathering vital intel for warlocks. This card almost kind of shows you that the Speaker and Zavala are they're in lockstep on this one, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is, and I think I get the sense that actually is probably pretty common with them, the two of them, regardless of if the Speaker has the idea and Zavala just follows, or not, I think that they at least present a unified front.
Yeah. I think Zavala's always gonna do that with the speaker.
Right. And I mean, that's the restoration card where he was like, no, he speaks for the Traveler. I get the sense that that is, I mean, he thinks that, I get the sense that he thinks that the speaker is literally talking for the Traveler. And so,
yeah, but I still think it's weird he felt the need to say that. Like, that seems to be the company line. That's, you know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
but all right. So in context of when we hear that line or when we would see that line, it is really early in the game. We actually don't know that as a new formed Guardian.
That's a fair point,
right? I mean, would you agree with that? Like, it would make sense that he's explaining that. So
I'll give you that one.
Yes. So the next card is kind of, so he's kind of we've been summarizing the different aspects of different pieces and persons in the game, and obviously the Taken King was a pretty big one. And so Regicide is actually another one of the reports to the speaker, or the Traveler's Observatory, as it's stated here, and it's from Commander Zavala, and it says, "And so the king has been slain, driven out of our world. Eris and Ikora have already begun planning a way to assault the Ascendant Realm and to end the threat of Oryx once and for all. The Guardian will lead that fire team, no doubt, once they have had a chance to stop and breathe. In the meantime, we're leveraging all available hidden and awoken intelligence assets to understand the threat of the Taken army left behind. The other members of the Vanguard have begun drawing up assault plans, and I have full faith and confidence we'll see this threat put to rest as well." End quote. So, again, just another, he's just, reporting. I mean, he basically is the Vanguard's communication bridge to the speaker. And he's just basically saying, hey, this is a status report. We killed Oryx, but we don't think he's actually dead, or we know he's not actually dead. But, hey, cool. We're going to keep going and we'll win. We'll win this. So
we've killed Oryx. We just haven't filed the requisite paperwork.
We couldn't find the body. So, yeah. But yeah, so that was really the purpose of the Regicide. And then the very last card is Skyline. And I'm going to let Mel steal that one.
What is that?
Skyline is one of our new areas. But anyways, Skyline, Meridian Bay, Mars. Area designation Skyline. Location, Buried City, Mars. The Clovis Bay Center served as a hub to several company assets across Meridian Bay and beyond. Though a transit system connects the various Bay facilities, the exact brethren of the network has been lost to time. The Vanguard intends to shed light on the mystery. After the role Clovis Bray Tech played in Earth's SIVA crisis, Commander Zavala wants no stone unturned when it comes to Golden Age conglomerate. But for now, Vanguard researchers have learned all they can from Skyline. It's Lord Shax's turn to scrutinize it. So it just goes more to him. He wants every little bit of information so he can make the best thought out plan what he can do for his people, for the Vanguard and stuff like that. And to me, it's very interesting that I'm not sure if he's focused on Clovis Bray and that specifically because of the SIVA crisis, or he knows that the technology put out during the Golden Age, specifically by Clovis Bray, could further pose a threat to the city, the rest of the Guardians, and Light, and all that stuff. So, Blue, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna respond. I think, yeah, that is exactly how I read that. He wants no stone unturned when it comes to the Golden Age conglomerate that is Clovis Bray, simply because they created SIVA. Like that's the connection for him is we need to defeat Siva. I need to know all there is about Siva. Clovis Bray created it. Therefore, I need to know all there is about Clovis. You know, like it's the degrees of association is you're attached to this. I need to know this. So you're attached to this. I need to know everything about you now. Like now. And so that was. No, go for it.
I love the line. I love the line. It's Lord Shax's turn to scrutinize it.
Punch it.
Someone else deal with this. Yeah, please.
But the there's actually kind of a cool segue here. There's a couple marks that I wanted to talk about just real quick. The first one is Mark of the Witness. Now, the quote on the Mark of the Witness is from Zavala, and he says, "Fighting your enemy helps you understand your enemy. Don't get distracted." There is also another quote, and I'm trying to find it.
Vitruvius?
No, this is actually from a bounty, and it's called Unfaltering. And the quote is, "Our enemies grant no mercy, kill without doubt. We must meet them in kind without becoming them." So this is actually kind of a paraphrase of there's an old quote about, you know, when you fight monsters, be careful not to become a monster yourself, or when you stare into the abyss stares back into you. That really kind of speaks to Zavala's entire thing. Is like he understands the need to know everything about your enemy, but he also understands the danger of knowing everything about your enemy. You know, when you're facing against an amoral or an immoral enemy, sometimes it seems the only way to do that is to throw out your morals and attack them on the ground that they stand on. But Zavala kind of tends, I get the feeling that Zavala would actually argue that is actually the best time to continue standing on your ground and just wait and take the better approach, even though you might have to deal with attacks, because you don't want to become them. If you sacrifice everything that separates you from your enemy in order to defeat your enemy, don't you become the enemy and let the enemy win?
Yes.
You could. Yeah. I mean, in an abstract sort of way, yes.
I mean, so there's another quote from Healthy Balance, which is another bounty. And Zavala says, "If a guardian must overextend to achieve victory, can he truly call it a victory?"
Yeah, because it's a victory.
It's a philosophical approach, right? Like he's basically saying if I have to become my enemy in order to defeat my enemy, that means that my enemy has won, because I am no longer me. I am now him or her.
Right. You lose all sense of self in order to defeat something that was threatening yourself or your way of life. And if you relinquish what makes you are no longer what you're standing for, right? Because you're not.
But I mean, but if you lose all sense of self, then you have lost what you were defending in the first part.
Right.
So no. Okay, here I'm gonna make a reference out of game real quick. This kind of goes back to, God, I'm gonna mess up his name. Jubal from Serenity.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So he's fighting for something he believes in, and then it's like, oh wait, no, I don't belong in this world. I'm a bad person. I've been fighting for this whole time. I've become what I'm fighting against. I don't belong in the world I'm fighting for.
Jubal early.
I can Jubal early, yeah. So I can actually fight for the thing and be the worst possible version of me I can be, and not belong in the society I'm fighting for afterwards. Does that make sense?
No. I see, but that is, That is one approach. Sure, you become a
Well,
monster in order to hunt monsters. But
well, I'm just saying, achieving the objective is achieving the objective. Like, so if stopping the darkness is the objective, if you have to do some suspect stuff to do that, and it changes you, one person, to make that happen, isn't that a worthwhile endeavor?
But if you are the spearhead for which you stand for everything that you fought for, and you lost yourself and the meaning of self in that battle, then now you are considered the enemy because you no longer are the person that used to stand up for what they believed. So it makes sense. It's just kind of showing that, like, if you start to do things that, like you say, are suspect and questionable too much to be considered an enemy, then the enemy is winning because you're no longer fighting for what you believe is right anymore. Pins
right? Pins just used it. At what point does a moral stand become an immoral act? Right. Mm-hmm. And that's really kind of the point is, I think Zavala is, as much as Zavala really wants to win, he also understands the danger that a Shax's approach, which is run headfirst into danger, and just attack everything, is not the best way to do things, because what happens is you lose your balance. And that kind of brings me to the next mark in a way. The next mark that I wanted to talk about is the Vitruvius mark. And I'm gonna talk a little bit in depth about this one, because this is a really cool connection, on top of a couple other things that Zavala is connected to as well. But the quote is, "The great generals and tacticians of the past have much to teach us." So yet another nod to the extent to which Zavala has read. So the interesting part for me here was that not only does this kind of explain why Zavala reads so much history and poetry, and from the transmission we know that he supposedly purrs over poetry when it's very well done, but not only this is this the reason, but it's a really cool thing because the name Vitruvius is actually it's named after Marcus Vitruvius Pollio. And this was a Roman author, architect, civil engineer, and a military engineer who lived during the 1st century BC. He is known for he actually wrote a multi-volume work called De Architectura. And here's kind of here's kind of the connection point for me that was really fun to read. Vitruvius, when he was in the military for Rome, he was, like I said, the military engineer. He was an architect, basically. And the way to kind of understand this position is, this post was, and this is a quote from a book called The Military Institutions of the Romans by another Roman, Flavius Vegetus Renatus. And the quote says, "This post was always conferred on an officer of great skill, experience, and long service, and who consequently was capable of instructing others in those branches of the profession in which he had distinguished himself." End quote. Vitruvius was basically a mentor to other soldiers, which is what Zavala is, which is what all the Vanguard mentors are. They are individuals, officers of great skill, they have great experience, and they have long service. And they are all capable of instructing others in the branches of the profession in which they have distinguished themselves. They are all military engineers, basically. And I found that dovetail very cool. And I just had to, like, I wasn't actually planning on going into Vitruvius's past, but when I read that quote, I was like, this is really almost too perfect. So, let me see. Oh, do we want to talk about, we talked about the meaning of the name.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to add something to the name.
Yeah, go for it.
So you talked about the from Cilicia.
Yeah. Yes.
And then also there was a kind of an African.
Well, South American connection a little bit.
Okay. And also there is a surname from Spain in the Basque region of Spain. It's Zavala with a B instead of a V. And it's actually derived from a Basque word called Zabal, meaning large or wide. And that's actually where the South American or Latin surname Zavala comes from.
So it means wide.
Yeah. Wide, large or wide. It's
like a wall.
Originally denoted someone who lived in a place of this name in Biscay. It's derived from the Basque Zabal, meaning large or wide.
It's interesting. That is really interesting.
His armor is large and wide.
In the Basque region of Spain, which if you're familiar with Spain, is the southern, correct?
Yeah.
Southwestern.
You had to ask me that.
Yeah, so that's what. I just know
northern Spain.
Oh, okay. I know that's where Barcelona is.
I swear,
so
yeah. Well, it's.
I don't like them. So
I think it's more around Bilbao.
Oh, okay.
So, because I remember going through some of Basque country, and it was when we were on the way to Bilbao. So, okay. The other. Are you all done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
The other connection to a Roman bend is obviously in the Fabian strategy. We've talked about this quite a bit. I just wanted to touch on it real quick. The Fabian strategy is the auto rifle that you get if you're a Titan, if I remember right? Isn't that the exotic auto rifle?
Yeah, it's the class specific gun, yes.
So this is actually a connection to another ancient Roman who went by the name Quintus Fabius Maximus Vericosus. In basically the Fabian strategy is a military strategy where pitched battles and frontal assaults are actually avoided in favor of wearing down an opponent through a war of attrition and indirection. While avoiding decisive battles, the side employing this strategy harasses its enemy through skirmishes to cause attrition, disrupt supply, and affect morale. Employment of the strategy implies that the side adopting the strategy believes time is on its side, but it may also be adopted when no feasible alternative strategy can be devised. There's a really cool story of Fabius Maximus and his entire development of the strategy. It was mostly to combat the invasion of Hannibal, actually, into Italy. And I've kind of talked about this in a couple of different podcasts, so I definitely urge you to go listen to those, because otherwise I'll get on the tangent and won't shut up. But so that's I'm going to cut myself off from talking about the Fabian strategy, and I'm going to actually roll into a connection to Sun Tzu and the Art of War. Now, we talked about this in chat. A lot of people kind of know this. It's kind of a well-known trivia fact that if you stand around Zavala for a long enough time, some of the idle dialogue, actually one of the idle dialogues is a paraphrasing of one of the quotes from Sun Tzu. Now, in that quote was, the quote from Sun Tzu is, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death." And basically, Zavala said, if I remember, I don't have Zavala's quote in front of me, actually, sadly. I completely blanked on grabbing that one, but it's basically treat them as your sons, and they will follow you into the dark. And so that's kind of an indicator that he's read Sun Tzu. Not only that, but we also know that he knows about Basho. So the other connection that we have to the Art of War is in a couple of the bounties, actually. There is a quote for crushing victory, for instance. He says, "Victory is good. absolute victory dissolves morale and ensures the enemy is defeated in future encounters as well. And that is actually a paraphrasing of actually a couple points from Sun Tzu. I'm trying to remember which one. I didn't grab it, but there is a number of points within the Art of War in which Sun Tzu actually points out that he kind of goes back and forth. He says that sometimes winning without fighting is actually the ultimate victory. But when you have to win or when you have to fight, wait until you can defeat them as quickly as possible, because a drawn out war is actually very bad for a country. There is another Sun Tzu paraphrase in Shields Up Bounty. The quote is, "There is wisdom in forcing the enemy to come to you." There is a lot of quotes there is a lot of discussion in the Art of War about how a good general will always make sure that he is aware of the territory and that his enemy, when possible, is not aware of the territory. And so those are two of the quotes that Zavala has. Now, there's an even more intriguing connection to Sun Tzu, for me at least, with Zavala, in that I kind of get the sense that Zavala is actually the general who Sun Tzu is describing. And I don't have anything to really back that up with. I just, from what we've seen of Zavala and what I've read of the Art of War and other pieces of Sun Tzu's philosophies and teachings, Zavala really seems to be kind of like the perfect general that Sun Tzu describes. Because what Sun Tzu says is, the general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. He goes on to say that a good commander is benevolent and unconcerned with fame, and the enlightened ruler is heedful, and the good general full of caution. So there's a lot of points here. Zavala has no interest in fame. We know this because when New Monarchy, for instance, approaches Zavala and offers him a throne if he will back them, he turns them down. He tells them to go away. He retreats without fearing disgrace because we have instances in which he's pulled Guardians back without any fear. The Great Disaster on the Moon. He as the Vanguard commander, he was part of the people pulling them back, and he probably got a lot of disgrace from that disaster. There's a lot of cases there. Whose only thought is to protect his country. He is obsessed with the dream of the city. We have multiple comments from him about how there is nothing that he will not do. There's a Talk to Zavala quest where he says, "There is no doctrine but defense. If the city is to stand, every response must be measured, every attack calculated, every body block followed by a devastating finale. If the city is to survive, it must be unquestioned. The walls must stand no matter the cost." And then he goes on to talk about this wall that he keeps saying in another one of the Talk to Zavala quotes. He says, "The wall. It keeps the dream of the city intact. On the battlefield, the defender is the wall and her allies stand behind her." Another one of the Talk to Zavala is, "The dream of the city. Its walls keep it together. Its spears, the strikers, are what keep it alive." He is obsessed with the dream of the city. There's a number of quotes from the Legend of the Titan quest where he says that, hang on real quick, let me grab it. He says, "I speak often of the power of the city as a symbol, but never forget it is a real place, the home to living, breathing people, a home that would not exist without your efforts. Down below us stretches the last free city on earth, and it is here because of your strength and your deeds. Do not forget this, Guardian. It is why we are here." And then he also says, give me 1 second. He also tells the Guardian, as a Titan, he says that you carry the dream of the city with you, Titan. As you step back into the wilds, always remember those of us behind the walls. We count on the strength of your shoulders. We're counting on you. He is completely obsessed with the protection of his country, his city. And he's, like I said, he's not concerned with fame. He doesn't care about disgrace. He only does things for the protection of the country and for the service of his sovereign, the speaker. He only wants to do that. A couple people have made comments about how Zavala doesn't really need to, there's the plausible deniability of the hidden and how, but when you actually start looking at some of the ways that he regards the hidden, he actually seems to know quite a bit about what the hidden are doing and what the Red Jacks are doing and what Cade's doing. He knows quite a bit. There's actually a connection to Sun Tzu in that as well. Sun Tzu says that secret operations are essential in war. Upon them, the army relies to make its every move. So he actually says that, you have to spy on people. You have to, because in order to actually make your movements make sense, you have to know where your enemy is going. So the hidden are doing exactly that. They're collecting information for the warlocks, but that is getting reported to Zavala, because Zavala, again, is the commander. He's the person that's sitting in the temple, gauging what move to make next. And the last kind of point that I would make for the Sun Tzu is kind of a funny one. There's a quote that says, "For them to perceive the advantage of defeating the enemy, they must also have their rewards." Zavala is the head of the Vanguard and who is responsible for passing out a lot of your Vanguard marks, your Vanguard gear. A lot of the equipment technically in the lore come from the Vanguard, primarily for Guardians. So he is actually rewarding you for, and we talked about that with the Vanguard marks. In order to get better gear, you have to do better. You have to prove that you actually are worthy of it. And then the last quote from Sun Tzu that I did want to talk about is kind of an odd one. He says, "Confront them with annihilation, and they will then survive. Plunge them into a deadly situation, and they will then live. When people fall into danger, they are then able to strive for victory." Kind of a darker bend, because there's kind of an indication that maybe some of the situations that Zavala is throwing us into, Justin, you were joking about not telling us about a turbo shank. You got confronted with annihilation. Did you survive?
Most of the time.
But I mean, there's a point at which, that when you fall into danger, you walk out victorious. There is a method to the madness for Zavala. The last quote that I want to talk about that we talked about in chat really was actually not from Sun Tzu. It was from an individual whose name is Edwin Markham. And it's probably actually, honestly, one of my favorite quotes. I've known this quote for a really long time, but it really does, to me, describe kind of Zavala in general. And the quote goes, "For all your days be prepared, and meet them ever alike. When you are the anvil, bear. When you are the hammer, strike." So that, for me, is the summary of Zavala. He can bear when he needs to, and then when he can, he strikes. So,
yeah, it's
a striker titan.
Like a striker titan. Oh yes, that was the other question that we got. We actually got asked that in live chat, and I promised live chat that we were going to talk about that a little bit. So the common question of what subclass? Justin, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts initially are defender, but I honestly, I don't forego the option that he's a dual subclass and he's a defender or striker.
A striking?
Simply a striking, like the striking, but no, unleash the striking. No.
That's what we're opening with Shax next week.
Yes. I don't rule that out, that he could be both, because I mean, it does seem like that would be very practical to be able to throw out whatever the situation calls for, whether it's a defender or a more offensive type strat. But if you had to nail me down to one, I'm saying defender.
Okay. And then Mel, what about you?
I think like most of the Vanguard representatives that we've talked about, I think he dabbles in a little bit of everything. And I think almost now at this point as a Vanguard leader, you have to know a little about all of it. I would like to think that he probably I want to say he probably started off as a defender titan initially, and I think as the further he went on, he definitely used striker class. The fire one, which I don't do a titan, and I'm trying to remember the hammer. I just call it hammers. I just call it the hammer class. Thank you, Sunbreaker. I just call it hammers. So I would imagine he does do a little bit of all of it. So
actually, yeah. I see Sunbreaker being the only one he does not dabble in at all, and that's just because of his shame at the whole Sunbreaker kind of debacle.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to disagree. I definitely get the sense that he mains a defender. But again, kind of like how Mel was just saying, they dabble in all their classes. There is definitely a sense that Zavala has knowledge of Sunbreakers. There are two quests that actually really kind of come to mind. One of them is knuckle branding, and the other one is the burning hammer. Knuckle branding, he says, it is difficult to defend against the burning fist at close range. Sunbreakers revel in this fact, which is like, okay, so he's just kind of talking about, okay, but then the burning hammer kind of has an interesting twist to the statement. He says, the weight of a hammer of soul in your hand betrays the tremendous impact it makes when it strikes. I can't read that as not being something that he has experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is saying the weight of the hammer of soul in your hand you don't talk of it like that without having to actually experience. So he actually has held a hammer of soul.
Fair enough.
Right? I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. And I know we do kind of see him get a little choked up with the Sunbreaker quest, because of the whole screw up with the Sunbreakers and how he kind of kicked them to the curb. But and I'm going to come back to the subclasses. The reason why I kind of think that he actually kind of dabbles in all three. So we talked about the Sunbreaker. The Striker, there's actually three bounties, I guess you would say, of Striker. The first one is crash landing. And he says, when a striker turns her entire body into a projectile, no one is truly safe. I kind of, in my head, canon think that he's talking about Wei Ning, just simply because her. Well, not, I mean, no, yes, kind of, but also because there's a number of Titan-esque quest steps that have Wei Ning's quote, and she was kind of the ultimate striker. And then the next one that I have is slay enemies. And this is actually a really cool one. He says, your training is progressing nicely, Guardian. The call of the striker is a difficult one, putting us on the front lines of a skirmish. Your heavy fist will turn the tide in many battles to come. So he actually identifies himself as one of the strikers that he is talking about. And that's slay enemies. The last one for the striker is an aptly named bounty, speeding locomotive. And the quote is, a charging striker presents her opponent two options, move or be moved. Again, kind of think that he's talking about Wei Ning. That's just my personal reading of that. And then on to defender. There are also a couple of bounties here. I picked out 3 of the ones that I like. The first one is attack and defend. And he says, defenders trained to personify both sword and shield at once. Then that brings us to slay enemies. The second, there's actually a couple different slay enemies, but this is slay enemies 2. And he says, when people of the cities think of a titan, they think of a defender. As the walls hold back the darkness, the defender holds up the light. Which makes me think of a Saint 14 quote, but we'll talk about that later. And then the last one for the defender is talk to Zavala, and this is actually the 36th one. There's that many of these these quests. And he says, the wall, it keeps the dream of the city intact. And we already read this one, but on the battlefield, the defender is the wall and her allies stand behind her. So the reason I kind of lean towards him being a primary of defender is just because of the patient personality type that he has. I don't know. It's really, that's kind of where I kind of lean. I'm trying to think. There was another one.
In regards to him being a defender titan?
No, well, there was a there was actually a like conversation between a defender and a warlock, and it was really kind of funny. Oh man, I can't find it. It's really annoying me. Oh, give me 1 second.
I'm sure that was an interesting conversation between a defender and a warlock.
Yeah, it was just like basically the warlock was trying to make fun of the defender and was like, why do you form a wall? And the Titan's response was basically just sit there and stare at the warlock as he's like just talking. And the warlock finally winds down and the Titan goes, that's why. Like, it was just like, it was really, really.
I wore you down.
Yeah. Well, no, that's exactly why. It was, oh my gosh. It was so, I'll have to find it later, but it was such a funny little excerpt. But, yeah, it was like, that's exactly the type of personality I see with Zavala, is like just kind of sitting there waiting for you to just kind of get done, and then okay, that's why. The last quest quote that I want to say before we move to the next one of the new segments that we have is actually talk to Amanda. And this is Amanda Holliday's description of her first encounter with Zavala. And she says, the first time I met Zavala, I was really intimidated. He's kind of a lot to take in, But then we got to talking about the city and the walls and how we're all going to die and the 900 things that want to wipe us out. And I realized he's actually much scarier than most people give him credit for. So he is
worse,
much scarier than most people give him credit for.
No, I know I would not want to come up against him in the Crucible or on the battlefield.
There's
I think
quotes.
He would be insane. I think a lot of people write off Zavala as, oh, Zavala, you're hilarious. That's cute. But like, I do not doubt in a situation where he needs to be serious and bust out that Fist of Havoc, he will not hold back. He will wreck. So,
yeah, there's a quote from Shax where he says that he wants to get Zavala back into the Crucible to show these younglings how it was done.
I remember that quote. Yes.
But yes, so let me see. I don't think I have a ton of things, but I don't really think I have
I think it's really interesting with Zavala. We don't have very much on his life prior, as opposed to when you look at Ikora and Cade. I know Cade, we don't have that much, and we have, I feel a little bit more on Ikora, but we don't really know too much what transformed him or what made him him.
We do,
we
do know that Ikora knew him when he was young.
We know that, and and we know who he studied under.
Also, does that mean young? What does that mean? Young guardian or young?
I took it as a young guardian because it's sheathed in flame is the bounty, and Ikora says a young Zavala once espoused the beauty of Sunsinger light until he saw the full extent of its power. So, like, she's talking about Sunsingers as guardians. Obviously Zavala wouldn't be around unless he was a guardian.
That was my point. We don't know much about him before.
Yeah. I mean, we know.
Whereas we do know a great deal about Cade before, just because of Cade's journal.
Right. And we know
Ikora, not so much.
Well, we know a few snippets of Ikora before she was a guardian, and we know we have a pretty decent summary of Ikora after she was a guard, like after she became a guardian, before she was a Vanguard mentor. Yeah. But and Little She-Bear in chat just brought that up too. The Sunbreaker quest definitely kind of points to the fact that he kind of might have had a few more towing the line moments when he was younger. And we know Ikora did.
It could explain why he's so serious and regimented now, that he might have done something in the past and realized how you can be reckless can be so damaging. And maybe that's why he comes so hard down on Cade for being kind of nonchalant and kind of just like, hey, it's fine. And he's like, no. It is not fine. I feel I yearn for that other little bit of information on why is he so regimented. Like, I don't feel like someone is just naturally this way. Like, I feel like there's something that had happened, or he saw something or learned it from someone that would want him to be the way he is. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's more to him that obviously we don't know. So
yeah,
I kind of feel like Tom Hanks's character in Saving Private Ryan, where everyone's got like a pot going on what he was back in peacetime, and then at the end he tells them all he was a school teacher. I kind of feel that's Zavala. He's got some kind of origin we're not even seeing coming.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but it's not really important that we know it, because he is what he is now.
Right.
Well, it might be important if we find out that perhaps he's Reef-born instead of Earth-born.
Yeah, the She-Bear just pointed that in the chat, and then also that's one of our emails that we're going to get to actually too, is about him being from the Reef potentially. So, do we want to go to one of our new segments?
Yeah,
you ready?
Totally do the thing. I am ready for the thing.
All right. Here we go.
Mel's Costume Lore Corner.
All right. So, yeah, I like our new little bumper there. I like it. It's so cool. So when you look at Zavala, I think the first thing most people always notice on costumes, regardless of what they look like in their outfits, is the colors that they're made of. And like we talked last time about Ikora, colors have incredible meaning. And a lot of times they're subconscious meanings. Like, you don't really think about how much that color impacts who a person is, what they stand for, until you start thinking about it more. And when you look at Zavala's attire, his primary colors are silver, red, and black. Obviously, black is more of just kind of a neutral tone, and while it does have its own meanings, I feel it's more there as a spacer to break up the other colors, so they're not so overpowering. But it is important to note that silver as a color in general indicates that it's high tech, it's modern, it's also ornate and graceful, sophisticated. So when you apply that to Zavala, you know that it's a space set environment, which is true. We're somewhere in our future, in that it is considered modern because, again, I mean, we're not looking at some old armor, but it's also ornate, and I feel his armor is ornate, and we'll go a little bit further into what I mean by that, and sophisticated, and elegant, which to me does describe a lot about Zavala's personality. Lou just spent all this time going over how much he is well read, how he knows all this stuff, and that his armor, just the color of his armor, lends to that information to show that he's just not some wandering Titan guardian and like, oh, silver, cool. Like the colors speak so much about his personality. Red, on the other hand, most people I think know red is a color of passion. It's associated with war and danger, strength, power, determination, but it also represents love and compassion. So thinking about his position as a vanguard and watcher over the city and being a Titan in general, someone that has crazy amount of power. They have, they're generally the ones out on the front line of the war, protecting those around them that they love, that they care about. And you see through a lot of the interaction that you have as Zavala that he deeply cares for his guardians, that he deeply cares for the city, especially the city. So it's no surprise that the main colors on his attire are red. I mean, that is a very prominent color, and it's not like a maroon red or a light red or a different tonality red. It is a true red, blood red, fire engine red. That is such a very bright, empowering color to have on someone's attire. A little about his armor. We mentioned earlier that he does wear the Jovian guard. Kind of going back into the origins and a lot of the Roman references. Jovian was the emperor of Rome, and he was the one that made peace with the Persians by giving up all of Rome to territories beyond the Tigris River. So, if you think about the sense that what his role as a vanguard is, making peace, relinquishing lands to different areas, but also fighting back. So he's not giving up all his territory, creating one specific territory for which the city exists, and all the rest of the earth that is still inhabitable was given up to the fallen, to the hive, to all these different enemies that we know. So, but it's also important to note that Jovian is another term for the god of Jove, which is also Roman for Jupiter. So Jupiter was also, or not Jove is not, excuse me, Jove is not Roman for Jupiter. Jove means Jupiter. But Jupiter was also the leader of the Roman gods in Roman mythology. So he's a leader. He is not only the leader of the vanguard and of the guardians, he's leading everyone, humans and the rest of the civilization of Earth alike. And I would almost argue to agree that he's the one that is telling the speaker, like, hey, this is what we're doing, pass the word on, kind of type of thing. Like his word is almost the word that everyone turns to in times of crisis and times of peace. So it's no surprise that he is considered the leader of the gods. And if you want to, for all extensive purposes, want to see the vanguard mentors as quote unquote gods that we all looked up to, they are the ones that possess all three subclasses that we theorize. So while God is a very, very heavy term, and I wouldn't necessarily apply it to someone like Zavala, it does have a lot of meaning in what his role is in terms of in relation to the vanguard, in relation to the survivors left on Earth. On the actual armor, the normal Jovian armor is actually kind of blue in color, but his armor is actually all silver with some black accents and some red accents. But he also, instead of that normal emblem that is seen on the Jovian armor that you can get for your guardian, he has a griffin. Griffins are actually very, very important, and it actually talks a lot about what he does and what he is. Like if you're kind of vaguely familiar about Destiny, and you're familiar with that there's Titans and they're hunters and there's warlocks, and vaguely what each of them do. If you see a griffin and you know about griffins stand for guarding treasures and priceless possessions. Griffins are a mix between an eagle, which is seen as the top predator in terms of the bird kingdom, and it's also a mix of a lion. And you think of the lions as is often referred to as a king of the animal kingdom. So you have these two figures, a griffin and a lion, that embody the sense of the topmost apex predators within their area and their subclass. They're not subclass, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, eagles are the ones that within their territory are pretty much going to rule on their food chain. Like, no one's above an eagle except for maybe like us and a lion. So, but it shows that he is there. He is the apex for the rest of the Guardians. He is the one leading. He's also the one guarding, which is very, very, very telling of what a Titan is and what Titans do. They guard, especially if he is considered a defender Titan. And he's always talking about how he needs to defend the city, how the Guardians need to help and defend all these different parts of the unknown solar system against all these evils that we're fighting. So, and if you want to think of the Griffins in terms of their priceless possessions, guarding over those priceless possessions, you can argue that the city is the most priceless possession that he has above his own life. Like, to him, that is the most important thing. Nothing above that is worth more to him than guarding the city. So, continuing on, just like the other classes, when you start out as a Titan, and then like what we discovered last week with Ikora, the lower level you are, the less armor you have, the less ornate it is, the less detailed and how many different fixtures and stuff you have throughout the armor. And Zavala's armor set and his attire is very, very telling of that same type of case. He doesn't have, he has a lot of armor on, and it's bulky, it's big, it shows that he's dominant. If you look at low level Titans, they're kind of more sleek in design, where higher level Titans, their pauldrons go up high, their chest pieces protrude more, cover more of their chest, their leg armor is bulkier and meatier and suggests that they're more aggressive. And his armor is definitely one of the most aggressive that you see in the game. So again, it just tells you more about that he is an established person. He has paid his dues to where he is at now. He's not just some fresh off the street, got some shiny armor, and is now in the Vanguard leading everyone. He earned this position. It is also of note that on his chest plate, he has lines that are different colors, and they look like the different bars you get in the military. And that kind of goes into more about how the lines specifically on his costume indicate that it's more of a uniform for him. It's not necessarily some cool looking armor, where if you look at Cade, he has so many adornments on his stuff. He has the ace of spades all over the place. He has, his stuff is ragtag. You can tell that he's a very loud person, and he was very much opinionated, whereas Zavala is very much by the books. This is, very regimented, straight and precise path that he wants to follow. And his armor very much speaks the same way. Another thing is of note is that just like Ikora, his outfit is incredibly clean. If you look at a lot of the other Guardians, and maybe even a little bit of the other people on the tower, if you look at Ivana and stuff like that, and Mad Holiday, they're messy. They have dirt. You can tell their outfits are worn. A lot of our Guardians, a lot of the stuff that we pick up, the armor, a lot of it is pretty clean looking. But I know a lot of the hunter marks, the capes are a disaster and that's putting it nicely. nicely. Like they're torn up. There's blood, there's mud, there's grit all over the place. And I know a lot of Titan marks also have a lot of those signs of wear and tear as well, but Zavala doesn't. He very much keeps his armor clean and precise. There's no holes, there's no tears, there's no chipped off paint or anything like that. And I think that it also lends to how meticulous he is as a person, that every detail needs to be precise. He needs to have everything in the right order in order to do his job correctly. It's also very interesting that he has a very small little piece of a gold sash with the Vanguard symbol on. And the fact that it is gold, he has no other gold throughout the rest of his outfit. There's none. There's a little bit of yellow on those bars on his chest plate that I mentioned earlier, but that's yellow. And this is distinctly gold. It lends more to his position within the Vanguard, that he's the leader. He's almost royalty in the sense of that he is the one above everybody else, that he is the one to turn to. Another thing is, we didn't really discuss that much with Ikora, but his facial expression and actually the different tattoo patterns that he has on his face is really interesting. He has... Unlike the other one, you don't really see on Ikora and you don't really see on too many other people, but he distinctly has these furrowed like creases and wrinkles on his forehead, and he has lines around his eyes, and like almost like lines, kind of like he doesn't get much sleep. And it shows that he is very serious, that he's very much dedicated to what he does, that he values everyone else in his job above his own health. If you think about it, like people that squint and like furrow their brows a lot, that's how you get those lines. So his whole entire, like the structure and the texture of his skin so far in his face indicate that he's very serious, that he's been around for a long time. He's probably seen a lot of stuff, just by judging by the different textures on his skin. It's also interesting that the tattoo patterns on his face, they're not mirrored like most Awokens are. There's some pieces of it missing, and then he has some scraggly lines throughout his head, and it almost kind of looks like he has scars throughout his head, like he's seen battle. And I think that lends more to that his tenure within being a Titan and being a Guardian. He's been around, he's seen things. He has the resume to show that he is to be there, to be the Vanguard leader. So, and his eyebrows are very serious. Like you look at his eyebrows and they just say business, and they're all business. So, and, but yeah, so that kind of covers most of the stronger points, throughout the attire of Zavala. Overall, he looks like just a general regular Titan, but there is a lot of key elements throughout his outfit that separate him from the rest of the pack. So, Blue, do we want to go to our dispatches of the wild and cover some of our cool emails?
So this is the next news segment that we're gonna start doing. At the end of each episode, I will say, hey, this is, again, reminder, this is going to be our next topic, our next week's topic. Send in an email for that topic, and we'll try to read as many of them as we can on the next podcast, and answer and ask questions, and stuff like that. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the next segment real quick.
Dispatches from the wilds.
All right, so our first email is going to be from, and I have this user's permission to mispronounce her name, because I probably will. But the first email is from Kaimana, I don't even know, NG. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last NG. So here's the email. I am a diehard Lady Titan, and is my main character that I play, so I must always go to Hardface Zavala is an understatement. My question for you, for you all is whatever happened with Zavala and Lord Saladin? Why do they no longer get along? Thanks for all the laughs. Okay, so what happened with Zavala and Saladin? Really, honestly, with Zavala and Saladin, I don't think anything really significantly happened. I think, we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. I think the main difference is between Shax and Saladin, and we're definitely going to talk about that next week. I think Zavala is really stuck in the middle between the three of them. I think he is kind of trying to be the peacekeeper between the two of them. And I think he's just getting to the point where he's frustrated, and that's why it's still awkward with him, because he's basically like, you're all idiots, just get over it. It all stems from Twilight Gap. That seems to be the brunt of the discord between the three, between Shax and Saladin. But Zavala gets along with Saladin, and Zavala gets along with Shax. They just don't get along with each other. So he's kind of the friend. He's the gopher friend that, Shax tells him, hey, you tell Saladin this. And then Saladin tells Zavala, hey, you tell Shax that. And he kind of is the messenger boy, I think. That's the feeling I get. Mel, Justin, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Not really. I feel like we kind of covered it a little bit already, how he's literally in the middle trying to tell the two children to play nice, type of thing. So I feel kind of bad for him. He's definitely that stuck in the middle type of friend, like he wants to be friends with Saladin, he wants to be friends with Shax, and he's just kind of like can't get them all in the room to do the trust fall exercise again. So
The broken horn. Shax is never going to forgive him for breaking his helmet. I mean,
no, I seriously think that's like in they did a trust fall, like they were all having a very heated conversation during the Battle of Twilight Gap, and so Zavala said, "Okay, let's have a trust fall exercise since apparently there's some issues," and they did it, and Shax's helmet broke,
and Saladin just threw his hands up like, "I'm not catching you."
Yeah, and that's what happened. Like there wasn't actually anything going on at Twilight Gap besides this trust fall exercise. And it's funny because when you actually go up to Shax and you say, "Hey, ask me about," and he goes like, "You wanted to probably the story about how I lost my horn, right?" And then you're like, okay, you kind of wait there and you're like, that's a story for another day. So clearly he's still very bitter about it, and it makes sense because he's still very bitter to Saladin. So that's my headcanon. That's my tinfoil theory.
I'm crying. Oh my gosh. Well, our next email is from Bjorn the Fell-Handed. And he says, let me start off by saying Zavala is the chief of the fun police. Next, I have a question. Do you think that Zavala being a male Awoken causes any animosity or unrest from the Reef towards the Guardian and the Tower? Just simply being a male Awoken, no. However, we do have a reference to Zavala as being a Reefborn potentially. There is a mention from Petra, and Little She-Bear in chat actually mentioned this earlier. And she says, Petra mentions that the Queen doesn't treat traitors lightly, and, quote, just ask Zavala or that fool Raoul. So there is kind of a nod there that Zavala might be actually Reefborn. The important thing to remember about the Awoken, there's a lot of important things, but the main thing for regards to this question, there are two types of Awoken currently. There is an Earthborn and a Reefborn. So just being an Awoken doesn't actually mean much, because what really matters is where you were born, where you were quote unquote created. And so I think, like I said, there's kind of a nod that Zavala might be a Reefborn Awoken. And if that's the case, yeah, I think there's some animosity, a little bit, but not in the sense that there's going to be a lot of drama, but in the sense that, Mara kind of made the point. You left. You're not part of our clan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We don't want anything to do with you. And so, there's not really unrest. I wouldn't say there's unrest. I would say there's just kind of disinterest with anything that has anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm. So. I kind of get the feeling that Awoken, Reefborn or Awoken are kind of like cats. They're kind of aloof to a lot of things, and they just kind of want to be left alone. But also, I think it's important that they also opened the reef to Guardians. And if he is actually a Reefborn Awoken, and he makes you wonder if he pulled some of that pull from being Reefborn, like, hey guys, can you do us a favor? Like, I know I left, and I know you don't really like me for leaving, but hear me out.
Yeah, I never got the sense that it was an external involvement. Like, I always got the sense that if anything, Varix would have more of a cause because of the way that he phrases the presentation of the Challenge of Elders to Petra. He kind of makes the point of, you can play the Guardians' love for rewards off of the need to research. Like I don't think. I mean, I honestly think Mara doesn't care. She says that they made the offer. All the Awoken left or whatever. Mara made the offer of like, hey, you get one chance to come home, and the ones that didn't come home, basically, I get the feeling we're basically like, you're dead to us, like you aren't of us anymore, and so I don't think she wastes any, but she doesn't lose sleep over them. Now I also see some animosity. Now I do see some like snarkiness with Raul and Zavala towards the reef. Like, Raul has some really fun quotes about the cryptarchy, the reef cryptarchy, just the same as the reef what's his face?
He looks like Zavala, but not Zavala.
Yeah,
he looks like he could be Zavala's kid.
What is his name? I never go to him because he's always such a munch about deciphering thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad.
His name.
But anyways, the Reef Cryptarch also has really snarky comments about Raul. Like, there's totally a competition going between the Reef Cryptarchy and the Tower Cryptarchy, and then Ives, thank you, Little She-Bear. Ives is the tool out on the reef. And then Tyra is the Fellwinters, and she's just like, I don't care. I founded this. Go away. Like, that's like, she's like, I don't, just leave me. I just want to write the story of the Iron Lords. But so like there's total, like, between the people who are not up in the upper echelons of the Awoken matriarchy, I definitely get a sense of, oh, we're better than you. And then like, no, we're better than you. Like that little passive aggressive cattiness. Because I think Zavala has some snark towards the reef too, if I remember right. I don't remember any particular quotes off the top of my head, but I seem to remember he has some cutting remarks there as well. So animosity towards the tower from the queen, no, not really. There is, I think, some snark from the tower to the reef, but I don't think it is, I don't think it's enough to impact anything that, especially Zavala. I don't think that emotion doesn't really seem to influence a lot of what he does. As you can see from the Sunbreaker quest, he was pretty emotional in the Sunbreaker quest, but he still made the hard call and did what he did. So
he's like, I have no time for petty emotions.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something he would say.
He has no, what was it? He has no time for anything softer than iron.
Yes, the very first one that we read tonight. So that is very appropriate. So very cool, very cool. Well, thank you guys for sending in those letters. I know.
Yes. All right. Well, final comments. I'm going to just jump right in here. Like I said, email topic for next week is going to be Lord Shax and the Red Jacks. Let's just toss the Red Jacks in there because they're kind of fun. We're talking about that in the Discord chat right now. We're having a lot of fun on that one. So Lord Shax and the Red Jacks will be the email topic for this next week. A note for next week, we are actually going to be recording on Tuesday, the 15th, instead of Wednesday. There's a schedule conflict that I have with the last half of the week, and so we're going to move it to Tuesday night instead of Wednesday night. And Mel, I think you're not here next week, right?
No, I'm not here next week. I have a job down in Vegas next week, and it's literally on the 15th at night. So
it happens.
You win some and you lose some.
Yeah, real life has implications. Schedule, and like I said, like we said at the beginning of the show, we are moving to a Friday night because of scheduling, just to make it a little bit easier on everybody. So we're definitely hoping that means less variations in the long run. It'll be a bit interesting to get used to that new schedule, but I think in the long run, it definitely will make it easier for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? You got any shout outs or final statements?
I don't have too many shout outs right now. But thank you guys. Thank you for chat, for being here. You guys are awesome. Again, thank you for Blue and Justin for having me, and Blue for he's let's be honest here. Blue does a lot of the work here. So thank you, Blue, for doing all the work that you do. She's just
happy that I made her an audio buffer or audio.
Oh, I know. I love my audio buffer. Thank you. So, and those of you who have been sending emails, please keep sending those emails in, so that way we can do them on the air. And it doesn't, like, if you guys have any questions regarding like, the costume lower corner, like, hey, Mel, I saw this on their outfit. What does it mean? Please send that email into, and we'll be happy to answer it too. So, but, a very big shout out because, Friday is Veterans Day. So I come from a family of vets. My dad served during the Vietnam era, and my dad's dad served, and all that jazz. So thank you, all veterans, current and that from the U.S. service, men and women. So thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, that I was actually gonna re-interject as well after that. But yes, thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate everything. Regardless of the opinion of last night, I guess last night, right? Was it?
Yeah, it was last night. It's hard to believe, right? I feel like it was like days ago.
Yeah. Regardless of your opinion on who won, I really don't care. Not because I don't care, but because we've built this as kind of a safe zone from that. We come here to escape reality in a way. But regardless of that, I personally really appreciate the freedom to do that.
Right.
I completely understand that is only there because of what our veterans and our active service members, because of what they put on the line every day, just doing what they do. So
it's insane.
Yeah. Regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, be sure to do what you can to give thanks to those people who, literally put their lives on the line to give you the ability to do what you were doing. So,
yeah. Thank you for your sacrifice. So we have our freedoms. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That I have the freedom to complain about everything, because let's be honest,
and do a podcast just about the video game.
Exactly. I would not be exactly. I mean, I can go on. I have a lot of friends who are in the services or who were in the services, and it's every day. It's like, it's just, there's something going on that I'm constantly reminded of. Hey, we couldn't do this. We wouldn't be allowed to do this in most countries. So thank you. That is really, it's a really heartfelt thing. Thank you. And that's that's kind of where I'm gonna roll into the wrapping up of chat. So with that, we will begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend their evening with us. If you'd like to join us, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our sites can also be found with our episode archives over on www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any feedback or questions concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback on iTunes or through email as well. Reminder, we are going to have that slight shift in our schedule starting in December due to some schedule conflicts and a desire to actually be functional at our day jobs. We're going to be moving the live stream of the podcast to Friday nights. We will still start up around 10 p.m. Central, but hopefully this is going to give us some more flexibility, not just for ourselves, but also for any guests that might be in different time zones as well. What this means is that instead of the audio hitting Podbean and other services on Thursday morning, it will be available early Saturday morning Central. So please let us know if you have any thoughts or concerns on that change, either through Discord or through an email. Be sure to check out our partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on the guardiansofdestiny.com as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.